Good evening, TVS Nightline, and here are the headlines for tonight. The construction of the BATANG KEMENA bridge has now reached 64.94% completion, expected to be completed by December this year. Malaysia reaffirmed its 2025 growth forecast at 4.5% to 5.5%, according to BNM. And on to world news, South Korea's Constitutional Court dismissed the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Duck-soo on Monday, reinstating him as acting president. We begin with this news. The construction of the BATANG KEMENA bridge in Sabah has now reached 64.94% completion and is expected to be completed by December this year. Deputy Premier Dato' Ahmad Douglas Uga Ambas, who visited the site recently to inspect the progress of the project, said despite some delays caused by flooding in Bintulu earlier this year, construction work is still progressing actively. He said the key components currently being implemented include the installation of piles, drainage systems, as well as the relocation of utilities and pipelines. With a length of 728.56 meters and a width of 12 meters, the bridge, which costs 74.89 million ringgit, will provide a safer and more efficient connection for surrounding communities, replacing the current reliance on ferry services. The BATANG KEMENA bridge will also be a key driver in improving the access and the economy for the local population. A total of 445 victims from 128 families have been moved to 5 temporary relief centres (PPS) as of 12 noon today, following the recent floods in Sarawak. According to the latest report from the National Disaster Command Centre, 4 districts in Sarawak have been affected by continuous rain, which has caused water levels to rise in some low-lying areas. In Sarawak, the JPBN Secretariat reported that the number of evacuees had dropped to 451 after the closure of the Balai Raya Song Relief Centre in Kapit Division yesterday, following improved flood conditions. As of this morning, 26 individuals remained at Asrama Belia Kapit, while 102 evacuees were housed at Dewan Suara Kapit. In Sibu Division, 49 people were sheltered at Dewan Community Sibujaya, 189 at Complex Sukan Knawit, and 85 at Dewan Sebaguna Selangau. While the flood situation in Johor and Sarawak continues to improve, while the number of evacuees in Sabah has risen slightly as at 8 a.m. today. In Johor, the number of evacuees had dropped to 3,893 people from 1,154 families, down from 4,597 people from 1,481 families reported yesterday. State Disaster Management Committee (JPBN) Chairman Tan Sri Dr. Azmi Rohani said evacuees are housed in 24 temporary relief centres in the 5 affected districts. Johor Bahru remains the worst hit with 2,409 evacuees, followed by Pontian 552, Kluang 487, Batu Pahat 358, and Kota Tinggi with 87 people. On to the next update. 2 male detainees who escaped from legal custody at the Kuching Court complex 3 weeks ago have been rearrested by police on Sunday, March 23. Kuching Police Chief ACP Muhammad Farhan Lee Abdullah confirmed that the fugitives were caught at 12:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. in Kota Samarahan. The escapees are identified as 27-year-old Muhammad Haisal Lezwan Abdul Zamri and 25-year-old Muhammad Nasri Razali fled the court complex at around 11:30 a.m. on March 7. Both are on trial for gang robbery without a firearm under Section 395/397 of the Penal Code. Muhammad Farhan also confirmed in a statement that both have been remanded for 3 days until March 27, and initial urine tests returned positive for drugs. Meanwhile, anyone with information regarding the case are encouraged to report them to the nearest police station, Kuching Police Operations Center at 082-244-444 or Senior Investigating Officer ASP Chris Olsen Ramley at 013-860-7572. Welcome back. Malaysia reaffirmed its 2025 growth forecast at 4.5% to 5.5%, despite mounting risks from a potential global trade war, escalating geopolitical tensions and rising protectionism. Bank Negara Governor Dr. Abdul Rashid Ghaffur said sustained domestic demand, driven by robust investment activity from multi-year projects, would be the key growth driver, while a strong labour market and income-boosting policies continue to support household spending. In his annual Economic and Monetary Review 2024, as well as Financial Stability Review for the second half of 2024 released today, BNM noted that headline inflation and core inflation in 2025 are expected to average between 2 and 3.5% and 1.5 as well as 2.5% respectively.
Second, the investment upcycle with the realization of approved investments and national master plans. And third, government initiatives on civil servant salary adjustments and also continued progress of the public infrastructure projects. Nevertheless, we expect inflation to be manageable in line with the easing global cost conditions and also the absence of excessive domestic demand pressure.
South Korea's Constitutional Court dismissed the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Tak-soo on Monday, reinstating him as acting president, a role he took after the president was suspended for declaring martial law. The court ruling is the latest development in South Korea's complex and sprawling political crisis, which President Yoon Suk-yeol started with a short-lived attempt to subvert civilian rule in December.
피청구인이 발표한 담화문의 전체적 취지는 비상계엄 선포와 해제 이후에 민심 수습과 안정을 위하여 행정부와 여당은 서로 협력하여 최선을 다하겠다는 의지를 국민에게 피력한 것으로 해석됩니다. 피청구인이 헌법 및 법률 위반이 임명권자인 대통령을 통하여 간접적으로 부여된 국민의 신임을 배반한 경우에 해당한다고 단정할 수 없습니다.
Lawmakers defied armed soldiers at Parliament to vote down Yoon's December 3 martial law declaration and impeached him soon after, with Han stepping in as acting president. But he was himself impeached by lawmakers just weeks later over his purported involvement in a martial law debacle, plus a dispute over judicial appointments. The court ruled 5-1 against Han's impeachment, with 2 judges arguing the case should not have made it to court as lawmakers did not have a supermajority to impeach him in the first place. Han's actions while in office cannot be seen as constituting a betrayal of the people's trust indirectly granted through the precedent, the court ruled. The decision is effective immediately and cannot be appealed. Former Russian Deputy Defense Minister Timur Ivanov appeared in court on Monday at the start of a high-profile embezzlement trial that could see him jailed for years. Ivanov, formerly in charge of Russian military construction projects, was arrested in April 2024 amid a wider crackdown on generals and military leaders suspected of corruption. Russia has prosecuted more than a dozen military officials and defense sector workers since last year, a crackdown on senior figures accused of siphoning off for personal gain vast amounts of money allocated for major projects. Prosecutors have accused Ivanov of stealing 3.2 billion rubles or $38.3 million from Moscow-based bank Intercommerce, which collapsed in 2016, and over 200 million rubles while procuring 2 ferries to serve Crimea. The hearing began on Monday morning at Moscow City Court. Ivanov is being tried alongside Anton Filatov, the former director of State Defense Corporation, Operon Logistica, which is owned by the Defense Ministry. Both men proclaimed their innocence. Ivanov's lawyer, Murat Musayev, told RIA Novosti news agency that the charges were completely groundless. And those were the updates on TVS Nightline. I'm Charlotte Matro. Thank you for watching and have a good night.